1 minute recap. The Pilgrims Progress, written by John Bunyan and published in 1678, is a Christian allegory that follows the spiritual journey of a man named Christian. The story begins with Christian, burdened by the weight of his sins, leaving his home in the city of destruction to seek salvation in the celestial city, heaven. Along the way, he encounters numerous trials and challenges, such as the Slough of Despond, Vanity Fair, and Doubting Castle, which symbolize the struggles and temptations believers face in life. Christian is guided and helped by figures like Evangelist, Faithful, and Hopeful, who encourage him to stay on the right path. The journey represents the Christian's path to salvation, overcoming obstacles of doubt, temptation, and sin. Eventually, Christian reaches the celestial city, a symbol of eternal life in heaven. The book remains a powerful work about faith, perseverance, and redemption. 1 minute recap. Robinson Crusoe, written by Daniel Defoe and published in 1719, tells the story of a young man who, against his family's wishes, embarks on a sea adventure. After a storm wrecks his ship, Robinson Crusoe is stranded on a deserted island for 28 years. Using his ingenuity, he builds shelter, grows crops, and makes tools, learning to survive in complete isolation. Crusoe struggles with loneliness and fear, but finds strength through his growing faith and reliance on God. After many years, he encounters and rescues a native man from cannibals, naming him Friday. The two become close companions, and Crusoe teaches Friday English and Christianity. Together, they survive on the island until Crusoe is eventually rescued. The novel explores themes of survival, self-reliance, faith, and human resilience, making it one of the earliest and most influential adventure stories in English literature. 1 minute recap. Gulliver's Travels, written by Jonathan Swift and published in 1726, is a satirical adventure novel that follows the voyages of Lemuel Gulliver, a ship surgeon, to various fantastical lands. In Lilliput, he encounters a race of tiny people, only 6 inches tall, who highlight the pettiness of human conflicts. In Brobdingnag, he is dwarfed by giants, and his perspectives on power and human nature are challenged. Gulliver's journey continues to the flying island of Laputa, where intellectuals are absorbed in absurd, impractical pursuits. Finally, in Huinland, he meets intelligent horses who rule over brutish, human-like creatures called yahoos, leading Gulliver to question the nature of humanity. Each voyage is a satirical commentary on politics, society, and human folly, with Swift using these absurd lands to reflect on the shortcomings of human nature and government. 1 minute recap. Clarissa, written by Samuel Richardson and published in 1748, is an epistolary novel that tells the tragic story of Clarissa Harlowe, a young woman from a wealthy family. Pressured by her family to marry the unscrupulous Mr. Solmes for financial gain, Clarissa rebels and runs away with the charming but manipulative Robert Lovelace. Although initially appearing as her savior, Lovelace's true intentions are far darker. He imprisons her and ultimately violates her trust and honor. Clarissa, seeking escape from Lovelace's control, endures a series of misfortunes but remains steadfast in her moral principles. Her tragic fate unfolds as she declines in health and ultimately dies, a symbol of virtue wronged by a corrupt society. The novel explores themes of virtue, agency, and the consequences of familial and societal pressures, making it one of the earliest and most influential English novels on morality and social critique. 1 minute recap. Tom Jones, written by Henry Fielding and published in 1749, is a picaresque novel that follows the life and adventures of Tom Jones, a foundling raised by the wealthy Squire Allworthy. Tom, though good-hearted and generous, is impulsive and often finds himself in trouble due to his romantic entanglements and reckless decisions. His love for Sophia Western, a beautiful and virtuous young woman, is complicated by misunderstandings, rivals, and his own mistakes. Throughout his journey, Tom encounters a variety of colorful characters and faces numerous challenges that test his character. The novel explores themes of morality, social class, and human nature, blending humor and satire with deeper commentary on society's hypocrisy. Eventually, Tom's true parentage is revealed, allowing him to marry Sophia and reclaim his place in society. Tom Jones is celebrated for its lively narrative, wit, and exploration of human flaws. 1 minute recap. The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman, written by Lawrence Sterne and published between 1759 and 1767, is a satirical novel that defies traditional storytelling. Though presented as an autobiography of Tristram Shandy, it rarely focuses on his life, instead digressing into humorous reflections on his eccentric family, particularly his philosophical father, Walter Shandy, and his whimsical uncle Toby. Sterne frequently interrupts the narrative with amusing asides, playful language, and philosophical musings, making it more a commentary on storytelling and human nature than a conventional plot. Through wit and satire, the novel explores themes like the unpredictability of life, the inadequacy of language, and the absurdities of human behavior. Tristram Shandy remains a groundbreaking work in English literature, celebrated for its inventive form and comic brilliance. 1-minute recap. Emma, written by Jane Austen and published in 1815, centers on Emma Woodhouse, a privileged young woman living in the village of Highbury. Confident in her matchmaking abilities, Emma takes it upon herself to orchestrate the romantic lives of her friends, particularly the naive Harriet Smith. However, her efforts often lead to misunderstandings, mistaken affections, and emotional turmoil for those involved. As the story unfolds, Emma's misguided interference teaches her important lessons about humility, self-awareness, and the complexity of human relationships. Throughout her journey, her steady and insightful friend, Mr. Knightley, serves as both a moral compass and a romantic interest, gently guiding her toward personal growth. In typical Austen fashion, the novel explores themes of love, social class, and personal maturity, all with sharp wit and humor. Emma ultimately finds love and happiness, but only after realizing her own limitations. 1-minute recap. Frankenstein, written by Mary Shelley and published in 1818, tells the story of Victor Frankenstein, a young scientist who becomes obsessed with creating life. Driven by ambition, he assembles a being from human body parts and brings it to life, only to be horrified by the creature's monstrous appearance. Victor abandons his creation, leading the creature to suffer rejection and loneliness. As the creature becomes increasingly isolated, it seeks revenge on Victor, blaming him for its misery. The novel explores themes of ambition, responsibility, and the dangers of playing God. Victor's creation wreaks havoc on his life, leading to the deaths of his loved ones. Eventually, both creator and creation are locked in a tragic cycle of vengeance and regret. Frankenstein is considered one of the first science fiction novels and remains a powerful exploration of human ambition and ethical boundaries. 1-minute recap. Nightmare Abbey, written by Thomas Love Peacock and published in 1818, is a satirical Gothic novel that pokes fun at the dark, brooding themes of romantic literature. The story follows Scythrop Glowry, a melancholic young man living in the gloomy Nightmare Abbey with his eccentric father. Scythrop, inspired by revolutionary ideas and romantic idealism, becomes entangled in a love triangle with two women, the mysterious and passionate Marionetta and the intellectual Celinda. Through witty dialogue and humorous scenarios, Peacock satirizes the moody, introspective tendencies of romantic writers like Lord Byron and Percy Shelley. The novel playfully critiques the exaggerated emotionalism and philosophical musings of the time, with Sip's grand ambitions for social reform ultimately amounting to nothing. Nightmare Abbey is a clever and humorous exploration of Romanticism's excesses, blending Gothic atmosphere with sharp satire. 1-minute recap. The narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, written by Edgar Allan Poe and published in 1838, is a harrowing tale of adventure and survival. The story follows Arthur Pym, a young man who stows away on the whaling ship Grampus. His adventure quickly turns nightmarish as the ship is struck by mutiny, leading to chaos and violence. After the mutiny, Pym and a few survivors endure a shipwreck and face starvation, even resorting to cannibalism to stay alive. Pym is eventually rescued by the crew of the Jane Guy, who take him on another voyage toward the South Pole. As they journey into the Antarctic, the story grows darker and more surreal, with encounters involving hostile natives, strange landscapes, and mysterious phenomena. The novel ends ambiguously as Pym and his companion approach an unknown, eerie figure in the Antarctic wilderness. Poe's novel blends adventure, psychological tension, and the fear of the unknown, offering a chilling exploration of survival and madness. 1-minute recap. Cibil, or The Two Nations, written by Benjamin Disraeli and published in 1845, is a political novel that highlights the stark division between England's wealthy elite and its impoverished working class during the 19th century. The story follows Charles Egremont, a young aristocrat who, after becoming involved in politics, seeks to understand the harsh realities of the poor. He meets Cibil Gerard, the idealistic daughter of a radical working-class leader who is deeply passionate about social reform. As Charles interacts with Cibil and witnesses the suffering of the working class, he becomes increasingly aware of the profound inequality that defines England. The novel contrasts the comfortable lives of the rich with the hardships endured by the poor, coining the term two nations to describe these separate worlds. Disraeli's Cibil is both a social critique and a call for compassion and reform, exploring themes of class, politics, and social justice. 1 minute recap. Jane Eyre, written by Charlotte Bronte and published in 1847, is a classic coming-of-age novel that follows the life of Jane Eyre, an orphaned girl who grows up facing hardship and isolation. After enduring a difficult childhood with her cruel aunt and harsh treatment at Lowood School, Jane becomes a governess at Thornfield Hall, where she meets the enigmatic and brooding Mr. Rochester. As Jane and Rochester's relationship deepens, secrets about his past begin to surface, particularly his hidden, mentally ill wife, Bertha Mason, who is kept locked in the attic. Jane is faced with moral dilemmas as she grapples with her love for Rochester and her strong sense of independence and integrity. The novel explores themes of love, morality, social class, and the struggle for personal freedom, with Jane ultimately finding strength through her principles and sense of self-worth. 1 minute recap. Wuthering Heights, written by Emily Bronte and published in 1847, is a dark, gothic tale of passion, revenge, and the destructive power of love. The novel centers on the intense, tumultuous relationship between Heathcliff, an orphan taken in by the Earnshaw family, and Catherine Earnshaw, the headstrong daughter of the family. Despite their deep, almost obsessive bond, their love is thwarted when Catherine chooses to marry Edgar Linton, a wealthy neighbor, for social status. Devastated, Heathcliff becomes consumed by bitterness and revenge, setting off a cycle of hatred that spans generations. He manipulates and destroys those around him, including Catherine's daughter, Cathy, and his own son. Wuthering Heights explores themes of love, jealousy, vengeance, and the supernatural, with the wild moors mirroring the emotional intensity of its characters. It remains one of the most powerful and haunting novels in English literature. 1 minute recap. Vanity Fair, written by William Makepeace Thackeray and published in 1847 to 1848, is a satirical novel set during the early 19th century, portraying the ambitions, social climbing, and moral shortcomings of its characters. The story follows two women with contrasting personalities: the charming but scheming Becky Sharp, a penniless orphan determined to rise in society, and the kind, naive Amelia Sedley, who hails from a wealthy family. Through Becky's manipulative rise and Amelia's romantic struggles, the novel exposes the hypocrisy, vanity, and greed prevalent in society. Becky uses her wit and charm to navigate her way into high society, while Amelia faces the downfall of her family and the hardships of love and loss. The novel's subtitle, A Novel Without a Hero, emphasizes that none of its characters are entirely virtuous. Vanity Fair is a sharp critique of societal values, exploring themes of ambition, wealth, and morality. 1 minute recap. David Copperfield, written by Charles Dickens and published in 1850, is a semi-autobiographical novel that follows the life of David Copperfield, from his troubled childhood to his eventual success as a writer. After the death of his father, David's mother marries the cruel Mr. Murdstone, who mistreats David and sends him away to a harsh boarding school. Following his mother's death, David is forced to work in a warehouse, but with the help of his kind-hearted aunt, Betsy Trotwood, he escapes and pursues an education. Throughout the novel, David encounters a rich cast of characters, including the kind Agnes Wickfield, the comical Mr. Micawber, and the deceitful Uriah Heep. David matures through personal trials, navigating love, friendship, betrayal, and loss before finding success and happiness. The novel explores themes of perseverance, self-discovery, and social class, and is one of Dickens' most beloved works. 1 minute recap. The Scarlet Letter, written by Nathaniel Hawthorne and published in 1850, is set in 17th century Puritan Massachusetts and tells the story of Hester Prynne, shamed for committing adultery. After bearing an illegitimate child, Pearl, Hester is forced to wear a scarlet letter A on her chest as a symbol of her sin. Though publicly humiliated, Hester remains strong and raises Pearl while living on the fringes of society. The novel explores themes of sin, guilt, and redemption, focusing on the hidden guilt of Arthur Dimmesdale, the town minister, and Pearl's father, and the vengeful pursuit of Roger Chillingworth, Hester's estranged husband. As Dimmesdale's guilt consumes him, he eventually confesses publicly, leading to his death. The Scarlet Letter is a powerful critique of the oppressive moral strictness of the Puritan society, delving into the complexities of human emotion, morality, and judgment. 1 minute recap. Moby Dick, written by Herman Melville and published in 1851, tells the epic tale of Captain Ahab's obsessive quest to hunt the great white whale Moby Dick, who had previously maimed him. The story is narrated by Ishmael, a young sailor who joins the whaling ship Pequod. As the ship sails across the oceans, Ahab's monomaniacal pursuit of vengeance consumes him, leading the crew into increasingly dangerous situations. Ishmael reflects on broader themes such as fate, free will, and humanity's struggle against nature. The crew encounters various adventures, but Ahab remains fixated on his vendetta, pushing the ship and its men to the brink of destruction. In the end, Ahab's obsession leads to tragedy, with Moby Dick sinking the Pequod. Ishmael, the lone survivor, is left to tell the tale. Moby Dick explores themes of obsession, revenge, and the limits of human understanding. 1 minute recap. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, written by Lewis Carroll and published in 1865, follows a young girl named Alice who falls down a rabbit hole into a fantastical, whimsical world. In Wonderland, Alice encounters a series of bizarre and eccentric characters, such as the White Rabbit, the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, and the tyrannical Queen of Hearts. As Alice navigates this strange world, where logic and rules seem to be constantly shifting, she faces peculiar challenges and philosophical riddles that test her perception of reality. The novel is filled with playful wordplay, imaginative settings, and a sense of dreamlike absurdity. Throughout her journey, Alice grows in self-awareness and confidence, standing up to the nonsensical authority figures she encounters. Ultimately, she awakens from her adventure, realizing it was all a dream. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is celebrated for its creativity, whimsical storytelling, and exploration of identity and logic. 1 minute recap. The Moonstone, written by Wilkie Collins and published in 1868, is considered one of the first detective novels in English literature. The story revolves around the mysterious disappearance of the Moonstone, a valuable Indian diamond, from the estate of Lady Verinder after her niece, Rachel Verinder, receives it as a birthday gift. The novel introduces Sergeant Cuff, a methodical detective who investigates the theft. The narrative is told from multiple perspectives, including that of the family's steward, Gabriel Betteridge, and other key witnesses, providing different insights into the mystery. As the investigation unfolds, secrets about the diamond's troubled history and its ties to India emerge, while Rachel's relationship with her suitor, Franklin Blake, becomes entangled in the mystery. The novel explores themes of colonialism, guilt, and obsession, and is praised for its intricate plotting and pioneering detective fiction structure. 1 minute recap. Little Women, written by Louisa May Alcott and published in 1868, follows the lives of the four March sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, as they grow up during the American Civil War. Raised by their mother, Marmee, while their father is away at war, the girls face the challenges of poverty, personal ambitions, and societal expectations. Each sister has a distinct personality. Meg is practical, Jo is tomboyish and dreams of being a writer, Beth is shy and musical, and Amy is artistic and determined to improve her social standing. As they navigate love, loss, and personal growth, the novel explores themes of family, womanhood, and the pursuit of happiness. Jo March, the central character, learns to balance her fierce independence with the importance of love and connection. Little Women is celebrated for its heartfelt portrayal of sisterhood and its progressive depiction of women's roles in society. 1 minute recap. Middlemarch, written by George Eliot, the pen name of Mary Ann Evans, was first published in serialized form between 1871 and 1872. Set in the fictitious town of Middlemarch, this grand Victorian novel weaves together the lives of several key characters, including Dorothea Brooke, an intelligent and idealistic young woman with a yearning for purpose, and Tertius Lydgate, an ambitious but flawed doctor. Through their stories, the novel tackles major themes such as political reform, marriage, ambition, the constraints of women, and the conflicts between personal desires and social expectations. Eliot's incisive psychological depth, moral philosophy, and nuanced portrayal of provincial life make Middlemarch a masterpiece of English literature. It is celebrated for its realism, complex characters, and exploration of human nature, cementing Eliot's legacy as one of the greatest novelists of the 19th century. 1-minute recap. The Way We Live Now, written by Anthony Trollope and published in 1875, is a scathing satire of the greed, corruption, and moral decay of Victorian society. The novel centers on Augustus Melmotte, a ruthless financier whose fraudulent schemes captivate London's elite. He rises to immense power and wealth, but his empire teeters on the edge of collapse, reflecting the fragility of the greed-driven society around him. Other characters weave through Melmotte's orbit: Lady Carberry, an ambitious social climber, her son, Sir Felix, a wastrel gambling with his future, and Paul Montague, torn between financial ambition and love. Trollope masterfully exposes the consequences of speculative capitalism, hollow ambition, and moral compromise. Through the novel's large ensemble, he paints a vivid picture of a world where money and social status dictate behavior, making The Way We Live Now one of Trollope's most enduring critiques of Victorian hypocrisy. 1-minute recap. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, first published in 1884, is a seminal American novel that follows the journey of young Huck Finn as he flees the constraints of civilized society and embarks on a raft journey down the Mississippi River. Huck is joined by Jim, a runaway slave, and together they navigate adventures that challenge Huck's understanding of morality, freedom, and race. The novel is a biting critique of slavery, racism, and entrenched social norms in pre-Civil War America. Through Huck's evolving friendship with Jim, Twain deftly uses humor, satire, and dialect to expose the deep injustices of the time. Huck's internal struggle between societal expectations and his own moral compass forms the core of the narrative, with Twain using the river as both a symbol of freedom and the unpredictable forces of life. Twain's masterpiece remains an enduring work for its exploration of human conscience, liberty, and societal hypocrisy. 1-minute recap. Kidnapped, written by Robert Louis Stevenson and first published in 1886, is an exciting adventure novel set in 18th century Scotland. It tells the story of David Balfour, a young orphan who, after his parents' death, sets out to claim his rightful inheritance from his sinister uncle Ebenezer. However, his uncle betrays him by having him kidnapped and sent aboard the ship Covenant, destined for the American colonies. A storm shipwrecks them off the coast of Scotland, where David meets Alan Breck Stewart, a Scottish Jacobite rebel. Together, they traverse the dangerous Highlands, fleeing from British soldiers while David grapples with his family's betrayal. The novel weaves historical events, such as the aftermath of the Jacobite Rebellion, with themes of loyalty, justice, and survival. Rich in action and character, Kidnapped is considered one of Stevenson's finest works, celebrated for its fast-paced adventure and moral undertones. 1-minute recap. 3 Men in a Boat, to say nothing of The Dog, written by Jerome K. Jerome and published in 1889, is a humorous novel that recounts the misadventures of 3 friends, Jay, George, and Harris, and a dog named Montmorency, as they embark on a boating holiday along the River Thames. What begins as an innocent plan for relaxation turns into a series of comical disasters, from setting up tents to cooking meals, all complicated by their inexperience and misfortune. Jerome's witty narrative voice, full of dry British humor, explores not only the chaotic escapades of the trio, but also philosophical musings and exaggerated anecdotes about history and life. Though intended as a travel guide, the novel's humor and absurdity overshadow its practical advice. 3 Men in a Boat is celebrated for its lighthearted tone, timeless humor, and the delightful interplay between its bumbling protagonists. 1-minute recap. The Sign of 4, written by Arthur Conan Doyle and published in 1890, is the second novel featuring the legendary detective Sherlock Holmes and his loyal companion, Dr. John Watson. The plot centers on a mysterious case brought to Holmes by Mary Morstan, a young woman who has been receiving anonymous gifts of pearls after her father's disappearance. As the investigation unfolds, Holmes and Watson uncover a complex tale involving a hidden treasure, a secret pact among 4 convicts, and a murder. The novel takes readers through thrilling chases, dark secrets, and betrayal, as Holmes's deductive brilliance is on full display. It also marks a pivotal moment in Watson's life, as he falls in love with Mary Morstan. Filled with suspense, exotic settings, and adventure, The Sign of Four is a captivating tale that further cements Sherlock Holmes as one of literature's greatest detectives. 1-minute recap. The Picture of Dorian Gray, written by Oscar Wilde and first published in 1890, is a dark, philosophical novel exploring themes of vanity, hedonism, and moral corruption. The story follows Dorian Gray, a handsome young man whose portrait is painted by the artist Basil Hallward. Influenced by the cynical Lord Henry Wotton, Dorian becomes obsessed with preserving his beauty and youth, wishing that his portrait would age in his place. As Dorian indulges in a life of excess and moral degradation, the portrait becomes a grotesque reflection of his inner corruption, while he remains outwardly youthful. His pursuit of pleasure leads to ruin, including the downfall of those around him. Wilde's novel examines the consequences of a life detached from moral responsibility and questions the relationship between beauty, art, and morality. The Picture of Dorian Gray is a quintessential Gothic novel and a sharp critique of Victorian society's superficiality. 1-minute recap. New Grub Street, written by George Gissing and published in 1891, portrays the struggles of writers in the harsh, commercialized literary world of 19th century London. The novel centers on 2 contrasting characters: Edwin Reardon, an idealistic novelist who values artistic integrity but faces poverty, and Jasper Milvain, a shrewd journalist who embraces the market-driven nature of publishing and thrives through pragmatism. Through their lives, Gissing explores themes of artistic compromise, financial survival, and the clash between creativity and commerce. The novel also delves into the personal consequences of these struggles, touching on marriage, ambition, and social class. Gissing's bleak depiction of the literary world critiques a system where talent and hard work are often overshadowed by market demands. New Grub Street remains a powerful commentary on the sacrifices writers make in pursuit of success in a capitalist society. 1-minute recap. Jude the Obscure, written by Thomas Hardy and published in 1895, is a tragic novel that explores themes of class, religion, marriage, and societal constraints. The story follows Jude Fawley, an impoverished stonemason with dreams of becoming a scholar at Christminster, a fictional version of Oxford. Despite his intellectual aspirations, Jude is thwarted by his low social standing and personal misfortunes, including 2 ill-fated relationships. One with his manipulative wife, Arabella, and the other with his free-spirited cousin, Sue Bridehead. As Jude's life unravels, Hardy critiques the rigid social structures of Victorian society, particularly the institution of marriage and the limited opportunities for the working class. The novel's bleak portrayal of human suffering, especially Jude's eventual despair, shocked contemporary readers. Jude the Obscure remains a powerful exploration of unfulfilled dreams and the crushing weight of societal expectations. 1-minute recap. The Red Badge of Courage, written by Stephen Crane and published in 1895, is a groundbreaking novel that explores the psychological experience of war. Set during the American Civil War, it follows Henry Fleming, a young soldier who dreams of glory but is gripped by fear and self-doubt when he faces his first battle. After fleeing the battlefield in panic, Henry is consumed by shame and longs for a red badge, a wound, as a mark of his courage. As the story unfolds, Henry wrestles with his cowardice, guilt, and desire for redemption. Eventually, he returns to the front, overcoming his fears and fighting bravely. Crane's vivid, realistic portrayal of warfare, without romanticizing heroism, was revolutionary for its time. The Red Badge of Courage delves deep into the complexities of fear, courage, and the psychological turmoil of a soldier, making it one of the most enduring works of war literature. 1-minute recap. Dracula, written by Bram Stoker and published in 1897, is a Gothic horror novel that introduces the iconic character Count Dracula. The story begins with Jonathan Harker, an English solicitor, traveling to Transylvania to assist the mysterious Count with a property purchase in England. Harker soon discovers that Dracula is a vampire, a creature who feeds on human blood and can transform into a bat or mist. As Dracula moves to England, he begins preying on Lucy Westenra, drawing the attention of her friend Mina Murray and her fiancé Jonathan, along with Professor Abraham Van Helsing, a vampire expert. Together, they form a group to hunt down Dracula and stop his reign of terror. The novel explores themes of fear, superstition, sexuality, and the clash between modernity and ancient evil. Dracula remains a seminal work of horror fiction, cementing the vampire in popular culture. 1-minute recap. Heart of Darkness, written by Joseph Conrad and published in 1899, explores the brutal realities of European imperialism and the darkness within human nature. The novella follows Charles Marlowe, a sailor sent on a mission to retrieve the enigmatic ivory trader, Mr. Kurtz, deep in the Congo Free State. As Marlowe ventures further into the African wilderness, he witnesses the exploitation of the native population and the moral decay of the colonial agents. Marlowe's journey culminates in his meeting with Kurtz, who has become a godlike figure among the natives, embodying the corruption and madness brought on by power. Through Marlowe's reflections on civilization and savagery, the novella critiques the hypocrisy and horrors of imperialism. Heart of Darkness is celebrated for its psychological complexity, symbolic depth, and profound examination of the darkness lurking in both individuals and society. 1-minute recap. Sister Carrie, written by Theodore Dreiser and published in 1900, is a groundbreaking realist novel that explores the rise of a young woman in the harsh, morally ambiguous world of urban America. The story follows Carrie Meeber, a small-town girl who moves to Chicago in search of a better life. Initially struggling with poverty, Carrie soon becomes involved with two men, Charles Drouet, a traveling salesman, and George Hurstwood, a married manager who steals money to run away with her. As Carrie climbs the social ladder, becoming a successful actress, Hurstwood's fortunes plummet. The novel presents a stark contrast between Carrie's ascent and Hurstwood's tragic downfall, highlighting the unpredictable nature of ambition and success in a capitalist society. Dreiser's depiction of desire, materialism, and the often impersonal forces that shape human lives made Sister Carrie a seminal work in American literature, celebrated for its unflinching realism. 1-minute recap. Kim, written by Rudyard Kipling and published in 1901, is an adventure novel set against the backdrop of British-ruled India. The story follows Kimball O'Hara, an orphaned boy of Irish descent, who roams the streets of Lahore, blending seamlessly into Indian society. Kim befriends a Tibetan Lama and embarks on a spiritual journey with him, while also becoming involved in the Great Game, the political espionage between Britain and Russia in Central Asia. As he is recruited by British intelligence, Kim's dual identity as both a British agent and a native Indian becomes central to his role as a spy. The novel vividly portrays the diverse cultures and landscapes of India, intertwining themes of identity, loyalty, and imperialism. Kim is celebrated for its rich depiction of colonial India and its reflection on the complexities of British rule, making it one of Kipling's most renowned works. 1-minute recap. The Call of the Wild, written by Jack London and published in 1903, is a classic adventure novel that explores the brutality and beauty of the natural world. The story follows Buck, a domesticated dog stolen from his comfortable home in California and sold into the harsh life of an Alaskan sled dog during the Klondike Gold Rush. As Buck endures severe conditions and cruel treatment, he gradually reverts to his primal instincts. Through a series of challenges and brutal encounters, Buck rises to become the leader of a sled team. His journey from civilization to the wild culminates in his complete embrace of his ancestral instincts, answering the call of the wild and finding his place in the wilderness. London's novel is a powerful exploration of survival, transformation, and the conflict between nature and civilization, celebrated for its vivid depiction of the wild and its philosophical depth. 1-minute recap. The Golden Bowl, written by Henry James and published in 1904, is a complex exploration of marriage, loyalty, and betrayal set within the upper echelons of European society. The novel follows the intertwined lives of American heiress Maggie Verver, her wealthy father Adam, her husband Prince Amerigo, and Charlotte Stant, an old flame of the prince who later marries Adam. Unbeknownst to Maggie, Amerigo and Charlotte rekindle their past romance, creating a web of deceit. The novel's titular Golden Bowl becomes a symbol of flawed beauty, representing the cracks in the seemingly perfect lives of its characters. As Maggie gradually uncovers the truth, she maneuvers with subtlety and intelligence to restore her marriage while maintaining social appearances. The Golden Bowl delves deep into themes of perception, moral ambiguity, and the complexities of human relationships, making it one of James's most intricate and psychologically profound works. 1-minute recap. Hadrien IIth, written by Frederick Rolfe and published in 1904, is a unique and satirical novel about the rise of an unlikely pope. The story follows George Arthur Rose, an eccentric, impoverished Englishman and failed priest who is unexpectedly chosen to become the pope, taking the name Hadrien VII. His sudden elevation to power allows him to implement radical reforms within the church and engage in political maneuvering on the global stage. As Pope Hadrian, Rose embodies Rolfe's own frustrations with the Catholic Church and society, creating a narrative filled with personal grievances, wit, and biting commentary on ecclesiastical power, politics, and human nature. The novel's blend of fantasy, satire, and introspection offers a critique of institutional authority and a reflection on the individual's capacity to shape destiny. Hadrien VII is celebrated for its originality, eccentricity, and the sharp personality Rolfe infused into his semi-autobiographical protagonist. 1-minute recap. The Wind in the Willows, written by Kenneth Grahame and published in 1908, is a beloved children's novel that weaves together themes of friendship, adventure, and the simple joys of rural life. The story centers on 4 anthropomorphic animals: the gentle mole, the loyal rat, the wise badger, and the reckless, flamboyant toad. When Mole ventures out from his burrow and meets Rat, the two form a close bond, enjoying peaceful days along the riverbank. Their calm existence is often interrupted by the impulsive Toad, whose love for adventure and fast vehicles leads to chaos, particularly when his obsession with motorcars results in theft, prison, and the eventual loss of his ancestral home, Toad Hall. With the help of his friends, Toad learns humility, and order is restored. The Wind in the Willows is celebrated for its lyrical prose, charming characters, and its timeless exploration of friendship and home. 1-minute recap. The History of Mr Ply, written by H.G. Wells and published in 1910, is a comic and insightful novel that follows Alfred Ply, a discontented middle-class man stuck in a dull life. Ply works as a draper and feels trapped in a loveless marriage, yearning for adventure and change. His frustration leads him to a botched suicide attempt, which inadvertently results in the burning of his shop. This unexpected event gives Ply the chance to reinvent himself. After leaving his old life behind, he finds a new beginning in a rural village where he becomes a local hero after standing up to a bully. Through Ply's humorous yet touching journey, Wells explores themes of personal reinvention, dissatisfaction with societal norms, and the search for meaning in life. The History of Mr Ply is celebrated for its wit, charm, and portrayal of the ordinary man's struggle to break free from the mundane and embrace change. 1-minute recap. Zula Dobson, written by Max Beerbohm and published in 1911, is a satirical novel that lampoons the absurdities of romance, vanity, and academic life. The story centers on the enchanting Zula Dobson, a femme fatale who captivates every man she meets, particularly the male students of Oxford University. Her beauty and charm are so overwhelming that the entire student body, including the aristocratic Duke of Dorset, falls hopelessly in love with her. However, Zula is incapable of returning their affection, leading the besotted men to declare a mass suicide in her honor. The novel humorously critiques the excesses of romantic idealism and the ridiculousness of unrequited love, while also poking fun at the self-seriousness of university culture. Beerbohm's witty prose and sharp satire make Zula Dobson a brilliant, whimsical exploration of the irrationality of passion and the follies of youth. 1-minute recap. The Good Soldier, written by Ford Madox Ford and published in 1915, is a masterful exploration of deception, infidelity, and the complexities of human relationships. The novel is narrated by John Dowell, who recounts the seemingly idyllic friendship between his wife, Florence, and their friends, Captain Edward Ashburnham, the good soldier, and his wife, Leonora. However, beneath this facade of respectability, dark secrets are revealed, including long-standing infidelities, emotional manipulation, and psychological trauma. As Dowell uncovers the truth about the relationships around him, his narrative becomes increasingly unreliable, filled with contradictions and emotional ambiguity. The novel's nonlinear structure and Dowell's fractured storytelling explore themes of betrayal, moral decay, and the fragility of human trust. The Good Soldier is celebrated for its psychological depth, complex characters, and Ford's innovative narrative techniques, making it one of the most influential modernist novels in English literature. 1-minute recap. The 39 Steps, written by John Buchan and published in 1915, is a fast-paced adventure and one of the earliest examples of the spy thriller genre. The novel follows Richard Hannay, an ordinary man who becomes embroiled in a dangerous conspiracy after his neighbor, a spy named Scudder, is murdered in his apartment. Before his death, Scudder reveals a plot to assassinate a European leader and spark a global war. Falsely accused of Scudder's murder, Hannay goes on the run across the Scottish countryside, using his wits to evade both the police and the spies chasing him. Along the way, he uncovers a secret network of foreign agents and the mysterious meaning of the 39 Steps. Buchan's novel is celebrated for its gripping suspense, action-packed plot, and the creation of a lone hero facing insurmountable odds, laying the groundwork for the modern espionage thriller. 1-minute recap. The Rainbow, written by D.H. Lawrence and published in 1915, traces 3 generations of the Brangwyn family as they seek personal fulfillment and independence. The novel explores the evolving relationships between men and women, focusing on Tom Brangwyn, his niece Anna, and her daughter Ursula. Each character experiences emotional and sexual awakenings that reflect broader societal changes in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Ursula, the central figure, grapples with societal expectations, yearning for independence and self-discovery in a rapidly modernizing world. Lawrence examines themes of industrialization, changing gender roles, and the tension between tradition and progress. Controversial for its explicit treatment of sexuality, The Rainbow was banned for obscenity upon its release, but is now regarded as a powerful exploration of human desire, individual identity, and the struggle for personal freedom in a restrictive society. 1-minute recap of Human Bondage, written by W. Somerset Maugham and published in 1915, is a semi-autobiographical novel that explores the struggles of Philip Carey, a young man burdened by a clubfoot and consumed by questions of identity, freedom, and meaning in life. Orphaned and raised by his strict uncle, Philip initially pursues a religious path but abandons it for art and later medicine. Throughout his journey, he experiences a series of failed relationships, including his toxic, obsessive love for the manipulative Mildred. Philip's quest for self-fulfillment is marked by pain, frustration, and personal growth as he grapples with the desire for love, happiness, and purpose. The novel explores deep philosophical themes about the nature of human existence, the constraints of societal expectations, and the complexity of human emotions. Of Human Bondage is widely regarded as one of Maugham's finest works, celebrated for its psychological insight and vivid realism. 1-minute recap. The Age of Innocence, written by Edith Wharton and published in 1920, is a poignant exploration of love, duty, and societal expectations in the upper-class society of 1870s New York. The novel centers on Newland Archer, a young lawyer engaged to the proper and conventional May Welland. However, his life is upended when he meets May's cousin, the free-spirited and scandalous Countess Ellen Olenska, who has returned to New York after fleeing a failed marriage in Europe. Torn between his duty to May and his passionate feelings for Ellen, Newland becomes trapped by the rigid social codes of his world. Wharton examines the constraints of high society, the conflict between individual desire and social obligation, and the painful choices that define one's life. The Age of Innocence is celebrated for its sharp social commentary and Wharton's subtle critique of the repressive nature of aristocratic values, earning her a Pulitzer Prize. 1-minute recap. Ulysses, written by James Joyce and published in 1922, is a modernist masterpiece that intricately chronicles a single day, June 16, 1904, in the life of Leopold Bloom, an ordinary man in Dublin. The novel parallels Homer's Odyssey, with Bloom representing Odysseus, and other characters like Stephen Dedalus and Molly Bloom embodying Telemachus and Penelope, respectively. Through its stream of consciousness narrative, Joyce delves deep into the inner thoughts, memories, and emotions of his characters, blending mythological references with mundane events. The novel explores themes of identity, nationality, sexuality, and the human condition, while pushing the boundaries of language and literary form. Each chapter employs a different style, reflecting Joyce's experimental approach to narrative structure. Ulysses is celebrated for its complexity, innovation, and depth. Though it initially faced censorship due to its explicit content, today it is hailed as one of the greatest works of modernist literature, revered for its influence and artistry. 1-minute recap. Babbitt, written by Sinclair Lewis and published in 1922, is a sharp satire of American middle-class life and the culture of conformity in the 1920s. The novel follows George F. Babbitt, a successful real estate agent in the fictional city of Zenith, who embodies the materialistic, status-driven businessman. Outwardly, Babbitt is content with his life, but internally, he feels a deep dissatisfaction and yearns for something more meaningful. He briefly rebels against societal expectations by exploring liberal ideas, engaging in an affair, and rejecting business norms, but ultimately, he returns to his conventional life, realizing the difficulty of escaping social pressures. Through Babbitt's personal struggles, Lewis critiques American consumerism, capitalism, and the hollowness of the American dream. Babbitt remains a classic exploration of personal discontent and societal conformity, solidifying Lewis's reputation as a leading social critic. 1-minute recap. A Passage to India, written by E.M. Forster and published in 1924, explores the tensions between British colonizers and native Indians during the British Raj. The novel centers on the complex relationships between three main characters: Dr. Aziz, an Indian Muslim, Cyril Fielding, an English schoolmaster, and Adela Quested, a young British woman. When Adela falsely accuses Aziz of assault during a trip to the Marabar Caves, the event sparks a racial and cultural clash that threatens the fragile connection between the British and Indian communities. The trial exposes the deep-rooted prejudices of colonialism and the misunderstandings between East and West. Forster's novel addresses themes of friendship, justice, colonialism, and the possibility or impossibility of true understanding between different cultures. A Passage to India is celebrated for its nuanced portrayal of cultural conflict and remains one of the most significant works on British colonialism in India. 1-minute recap. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, written by Anita Luce and published in 1925, is a witty and satirical novel that chronicles the adventures of Lorelei Lee, a charming and ditzy blonde flapper from Arkansas, through her diary entries. Lorelei is determined to marry a wealthy man and uses her looks and flirtatious personality to navigate the high society of 1920s New York and Europe. Her best friend, Dorothy Shaw, a clever brunette, provides a sharp contrast with her cynical outlook. While Lorelei's shallow pursuit of riches and luxury might seem simplistic, Luce brilliantly critiques the social dynamics of the Jazz Age, revealing the power that women like Lorelei wield over the wealthy men they attract. With its humor, sparkling dialogue, and social satire, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes became a cultural phenomenon, offering a playful yet incisive look at gender roles, materialism, and the pursuit of the American dream in the Roaring Twenties. 1-minute recap. Mrs. Dalloway, written by Virginia Woolf and published in 1925, is a modernist novel that explores a single day in the life of Clarissa Dalloway, a high society woman in post-World War I London. As she prepares for a party she is hosting that evening, the novel delves into her stream of consciousness, revealing her inner thoughts, memories, and existential reflections on aging, love, and identity. Parallel to Clarissa's story is that of Septimus Warren Smith, a war veteran suffering from shell shock, whose tragic fate starkly contrasts with Clarissa's privileged life. Through these intertwined narratives, Woolf critiques the rigid social structures and examines themes of mental illness, death, and the passage of time. Mrs. Dalloway is celebrated for its experimental narrative style, intricate psychological depth, and its exploration of how individual lives intersect with larger social and historical forces. 1-minute recap. The Great Gatsby, written by F. Scott Fitzgerald and published in 1925, is a tragic tale of ambition, love, and the American dream. Set in the Roaring Twenties, the novel follows Nick Carraway, a young man who becomes entangled in the world of his enigmatic and wealthy neighbor, Jay Gatsby. Gatsby is famous for his lavish parties, but his true motivation is to win back Daisy Buchanan, a former lover now married to the wealthy but morally bankrupt Tom Buchanan. As Nick witnesses Gatsby's obsessive pursuit of Daisy and the corrupting power of wealth, the novel explores themes of idealism, class disparity, and the illusions of the American dream. Gatsby's ultimate downfall reveals the emptiness behind his pursuit of success and love. The Great Gatsby is celebrated for its lyrical prose, symbolic depth, and its enduring critique of the hollowness of the American upper class. 1 minute recap. Lly Willows, written by Sylvia Townsend Warner and published in 1926, is a witty and subversive novel about personal independence and defying societal expectations. The story follows Laura Lly Willows, a middle-aged woman who, after years of dutifully caring for her family, decides to break free from her conventional life. She moves to a small village in the countryside, where she discovers a sense of freedom she has never known. Unexpectedly, Lly becomes a witch, making a pact with the devil to escape the restrictions placed on women by society. The novel blends satire with fantasy as Lly embraces her newfound autonomy and connection to nature. Lly Willows is celebrated for its feminist themes, its critique of patriarchal control, and its whimsical portrayal of witchcraft as a metaphor for female liberation. It remains a charming, thought-provoking exploration of independence and self-determination. 1 minute recap. The Sun Also Rises, written by Ernest Hemingway and published in 1926, is a defining novel of the lost generation, capturing the disillusionment and aimlessness of post-World War I expatriates. The story follows American journalist Jake Barnes and his circle of friends, including the beautiful, capricious Lady Brett Ashley, as they travel from Paris to Spain, engaging in a life of drinking, bullfighting, and unfulfilled love. At its core, the novel explores themes of alienation, masculinity, and the search for meaning in a world shattered by war. Jake's unrequited love for Brett, complicated by his war injury, symbolizes the emotional and physical scars carried by his generation. Hemingway's spare, direct prose and his focus on the internal struggles of his characters marked a significant shift in literary style. The Sun Also Rises remains a seminal work of modernist literature, celebrated for its raw portrayal of lost ideals and existential uncertainty. 1 minute recap. The Maltese Falcon, written by Dashiell Hammett and published in 1930, is a classic hard-boiled detective novel that helped define the genre. The story follows private detective Sam Spade, who becomes entangled in a web of deceit, murder, and betrayal after taking on a case involving the mysterious and valuable Maltese Falcon statuette. Spade's client, the seductive and duplicitous Bridget O'Shaughnessy, along with a cast of shady characters, such as the flamboyant Joel Cairo and the sinister Casper Gutman, are all in pursuit of the prized artifact. As the bodies pile up and allegiances shift, Spade navigates through a world of lies and corruption, guided only by his personal code of ethics. Hammett's terse, gritty prose and morally ambiguous characters make the Maltese Falcon a cornerstone of noir fiction, celebrated for its complex plot, sharp dialogue, and iconic detective hero. 1 minute recap. As I Lay Dying, written by William Faulkner and published in 1930, is a Southern Gothic novel that tells the story of the Bundren family's journey to bury their matriarch, Addie Bundren, in her hometown. The novel is narrated through multiple perspectives, including each family member, providing a fragmented stream of consciousness narrative that reveals their inner thoughts and motivations. As the family travels through Mississippi, facing floods, fires, and personal hardships, their dysfunctional relationships and individual struggles come to light. Central to the novel are themes of mortality, suffering, and the absurdity of existence, as each character grapples with their own emotional burdens. Faulkner's experimental narrative style, with its shifting viewpoints and intense psychological depth, has made As I Lay Dying a landmark of modernist literature, celebrated for its innovation, dark humor, and exploration of the complexities of human experience. 1 minute recap. Brave New World, written by Aldous Huxley and published in 1932, presents a dystopian future where technology and genetic engineering have created a highly controlled society. In the world state, people are conditioned from birth for specific roles, and individuality, family, and deep emotions are sacrificed for stability and happiness. The drug soma ensures constant contentment, preventing unrest. The story follows Bernard Marx, who feels alienated in this rigid society, and John, a savage raised outside the world state. John's exposure to the conformist, dehumanizing world sparks a clash of values, raising questions about freedom, individuality, and the price of societal control. Huxley's novel explores the dangers of sacrificing personal freedom for superficial happiness, offering a prescient critique of consumerism, technological domination, and totalitarianism. Brave New World remains a foundational work of dystopian literature, known for its profound social commentary. 1-minute recap. Cold Comfort Farm, written by Stella Gibbons and published in 1932, is a witty parody of rural melodramas, particularly those of writers like Thomas Hardy and D.H. Lawrence. The novel follows Flora Post, an orphaned young woman with modern sensibilities who moves to the rustic Cold Comfort Farm to live with her eccentric relatives, the Starkhatters. The farm is steeped in gloom, bizarre traditions, and unresolved family tensions, presided over by the matriarch, Aunt Ada Doom, who claims she once saw something nasty in the woodshed. With her no-nonsense attitude, Flora sets out to bring order to the chaotic lives of the Starkhatters, helping them resolve their personal problems and modernize their outdated ways. Cold Comfort Farm is celebrated for its humor, sharp dialogue, and its playful satire of literary tropes. Gibbons' novel remains a delightful and clever critique of romanticized rural life and human eccentricity. 1-minute recap. 1919, written by John Dos Passos and published in 1932, is the second novel in his USA trilogy, a sweeping exploration of American life in the early 20th century. The novel focuses on the turbulent period during and after World War I, examining the social, political, and economic changes that shaped the country. Using a mix of narrative styles, including biographies, newsreel, clippings, and stream of consciousness passages called the camera eye, Dos Passos creates a fragmented yet vivid portrait of America. The novel follows a cast of characters from various backgrounds, journalists, soldiers, and laborers, whose personal lives reflect broader societal upheavals. Through their stories, Dos Passos critiques capitalism, the loss of individual freedom, and the disillusionment that followed the war. 1919 is praised for its experimental form and its powerful depiction of the American experience, making it a landmark in modernist literature. 1-minute recap. Tropic of Cancer, written by Henry Miller and published in 1934, is a groundbreaking and controversial novel that blends autobiography with fiction. Set in 1930s Paris, the novel follows Miller's alter ego, an impoverished American writer, as he navigates the city's bohemian underworld. Filled with explicit sexual content, raw language, and philosophical reflections, the novel explores themes of artistic freedom, existential despair, and the rejection of societal norms. Miller writes in a stream of consciousness style, capturing his musings on life, art, poverty, and sexuality. His rejection of conventional morality and candid depictions of eroticism sparked outrage upon its release, leading to its banning in the US and other countries for decades. However, Tropic of Cancer is now considered a seminal work in modern literature for its bold narrative style and its exploration of the human condition, artistic struggle, and personal liberation. 1-minute recap. Scoop, written by Evelyn Waugh and published in 1938, is a satirical novel that humorously critiques journalism and foreign correspondence. The story follows William Booth, an unassuming nature writer for the Daily Beast, who is mistakenly sent to cover a fictional civil war in the African country of Ishmaelia. Booth, entirely out of his depth, navigates the absurd world of competitive journalism, filled with flamboyant reporters, clueless editors, and exaggerated news coverage. Despite his lack of experience, Booth accidentally stumbles upon the biggest scoop of the conflict, outshining his more seasoned peers. Waugh's sharp wit skewers the sensationalism of the press and the chaotic nature of foreign reporting. Scoop is celebrated for its biting satire, comic absurdity, and its enduring commentary on media manipulation and the often absurd pursuit of truth in journalism. It remains one of Waugh's most beloved works. 1-minute recap. Murphy, written by Samuel Beckett and published in 1938, is a darkly comic novel that explores themes of existentialism, madness, and the futility of human effort. The story follows Murphy, an aimless and apathetic man who seeks escape from the pressures of the physical world. Desiring a life of pure contemplation, Murphy becomes a patient at a mental institution, where he feels he can withdraw from reality and achieve a state of detachment. Throughout the novel, Beckett satirizes the struggles of the human condition, particularly the tension between body and mind, with Murphy caught between his mundane life and his desire for metaphysical freedom. The novel is filled with Beckett's trademark absurdity, dry humor, and philosophical reflections on existence. Murphy marks an early example of Beckett's existential themes and his exploration of the absurdity of life, foreshadowing his later, more famous works like Waiting for Godot. 1-minute recap. The Big Sleep, written by Raymond Chandler and published in 1939, is a landmark novel in the hard-boiled detective genre. The story introduces Philip Marlowe, Chandler's iconic private investigator, who is hired by the wealthy General Sternwood to investigate a blackmail scheme involving his wild daughter, Carmen. As Marlowe digs deeper, he uncovers a tangled web of corruption, murder, and deceit involving Los Angeles' criminal underworld. The novel's fast-paced plot is filled with sharp dialogue, morally ambiguous characters, and atmospheric descriptions of a gritty, noirish city. Marlowe's relentless pursuit of the truth and his personal code of ethics drive the story, even as the mystery becomes more complex and dangerous. The Big Sleep is celebrated for its complex narrative, vivid characters, and Chandler's stylistic innovations, making it a cornerstone of detective fiction and a defining example of the noir genre. 1-minute recap. Partygoing, written by Henry Green and published in 1939, is a modernist novel that explores themes of social class, time, and human detachment. The story revolves around a group of wealthy socialites stranded in a London railway station due to heavy fog, waiting to catch a train to the continent for a party. Over the course of the novel, the characters, led by the wealthy Max and his fickle girlfriend Amabel, engage in trivial conversations, flirtations, and personal anxieties, revealing their emotional isolation and moral emptiness. Green's prose is minimalist and impressionistic, with a focus on dialogue and interior thoughts rather than action. The fog, both literal and symbolic, creates an atmosphere of uncertainty and disorientation, mirroring the characters' existential confusion. Partygoing is celebrated for its subtle social commentary and its innovative narrative style, offering a detached yet intimate portrait of the idle upper class. 1-minute recap. At Swim Two Birds, written by Flann O'Brien and published in 1939, is a highly inventive and absurdly humorous novel that plays with narrative structure and literary conventions. The story follows a nameless university student in Dublin who is writing a novel about a novelist whose characters rebel against him. These characters, drawn from Irish mythology, westerns, and folklore, come to life and take control of the plot, creating multiple layers of fiction within fiction. O'Brien's novel is a satirical exploration of storytelling, challenging the idea of a single authoritative narrative. It blends fantasy, realism, and parody in a chaotic yet brilliant manner, making it a unique example of Irish modernist literature. With its mix of surrealism, metafiction, and dark humor, At Swim Two Birds is celebrated for its originality and its playful subversion of literary norms, influencing later postmodern works. 1-minute recap. The Grapes of Wrath, written by John Steinbeck and published in 1939, is a powerful novel that explores the plight of migrant farmers during the Great Depression. The story follows the Joad family, tenant farmers displaced from Oklahoma by the Dust Bowl and economic hardship. They journey westward to California in search of a better life, only to face further exploitation, poverty, and disillusionment. At the heart of the novel is Tom Joad, recently released from prison, who becomes increasingly aware of the systemic injustices faced by the working class. As the Joads struggle to survive, Steinbeck critiques the greed of landowners, the failure of capitalism, and the dehumanizing effects of poverty. The novel is celebrated for its vivid depiction of suffering and resilience, and its deep empathy for the oppressed. The Grapes of Wrath remains a seminal work in American literature, noted for its social commentary and timeless relevance. 1-minute recap. Joy in the Morning, written by P.G. Wodehouse and published in 1946, is a delightful comic novel featuring the beloved characters Bertie Wooster and his unflappable valet, Jeeves. The story takes place in the sleepy English village of Steeple Bumpley, where Bertie finds himself entangled in a series of hilarious misadventures, including helping his old friend, Boko Fiddleworth, win the approval of his formidable future father-in-law, Sir Watkin Bassett. As always, Bertie's well-intentioned but bumbling efforts lead to chaos, while Jeeves, with his brilliant mind and impeccable timing, deftly maneuvers to solve the various problems that arise. Wodehouse's signature wit, sharp dialogue, and comical misunderstandings are on full display in this novel, making it a quintessential example of his light-hearted, farcical storytelling. Joy in the Morning remains a beloved entry in the Jeeves and Wooster series, celebrated for its humor and charm. 1-minute recap. All the King's Men, written by Robert Penn Warren and published in 1946, is a classic American political novel that delves into the corrupting nature of power. The story follows the rise and fall of Willie Stark, a populist politician in the American South, loosely based on real-life Louisiana Governor Huey Long. Stark begins as an idealistic man of the people, but gradually becomes a ruthless and corrupt figure, compromising his morals for political success. The novel is narrated by Jack Burden, Stark's aide and a former journalist, who struggles with his own disillusionment and personal crises as he becomes entangled in Stark's web of manipulation and betrayal. Through Burden's reflective and philosophical voice, the novel explores themes of idealism, cynicism, responsibility, and the complexity of human nature. All the King's Men is celebrated for its rich character development, moral ambiguity, and its exploration of the destructive effects of political ambition. 1-minute recap. Under the Volcano, written by Malcolm Lowry and published in 1947, is a haunting and complex novel that traces the final day in the life of Geoffrey Furman, a former British consul in Mexico. Set on the Day of the Dead in 1938, the novel captures Furman's tragic descent into alcoholism as he struggles with personal demons, failed relationships, and his inability to reconnect with his estranged wife, Yvonne, who has returned in a desperate attempt to save him. Through rich, symbolic prose, Lowry paints a vivid portrait of Furman's internal turmoil, as well as the larger socio-political tensions of pre-World War II Mexico. The novel explores themes of self-destruction, guilt, and existential despair, as Furman's world spirals further out of control. Under the Volcano is celebrated for its intricate structure, psychological depth, and its exploration of human frailty, making it one of the most important works of 20th century literature. 1-minute recap. The Heat of the Day, written by Elizabeth Bowen and published in 1948, is a gripping psychological drama set in London during World War II. The novel follows Stella Rodney, a widowed woman who becomes romantically involved with Robert Kelway, a man suspected of espionage. Stella's life is thrown into turmoil when Harrison, a British intelligence agent, confronts her with evidence that Robert may be betraying his country. Torn between her love for Robert and her loyalty to Britain, Stella faces a moral dilemma as the war's pressures seep into her personal life. Bowen masterfully evokes the atmosphere of wartime London, with its air raids and pervasive sense of uncertainty, creating a backdrop that heightens the emotional tension. The Heat of the Day is celebrated for its complex characters, its exploration of trust and betrayal, and its rich, atmospheric prose, making it a standout in Bowen's literary career. 1-minute recap. To 1984, written by George Orwell and published in 1949, is a dystopian novel that presents a chilling vision of totalitarianism and state surveillance. Set in a future where the party, led by the mysterious Big Brother, exerts absolute control over every aspect of life in Oceania, the novel follows Winston Smith, a low-ranking party member who secretly despises the regime. Winston works at the Ministry of Truth, altering historical records to fit the party's ever-changing narrative, while privately yearning for rebellion and truth. As Winston embarks on a forbidden love affair and begins to question the party's authority, he is inevitably caught in a web of betrayal and oppression. The novel explores themes of power, control, and the manipulation of truth, warning of the dangers of totalitarianism. 1984 remains a seminal work for its exploration of surveillance, stout propaganda, and the loss of individual freedom, and it continues to resonate in discussions of political and social control. 1-minute recap. The End of the Affair, written by Graham Greene and published in 1951, is a deeply introspective novel that explores love, jealousy, faith, and the complexities of human relationships. Set in London during and after World War II, the story is narrated by Maurice Bendrix, a writer who embarks on a passionate love affair with Sarah Miles, the wife of a civil servant, Henry. Their affair abruptly ends when Sarah mysteriously breaks it off, leaving Maurice consumed by jealousy and resentment. As Bendrix seeks to uncover the reasons for Sarah's sudden withdrawal, he discovers her internal struggles with guilt, faith, and a promise made to God during a bombing raid. The novel delves into questions of spiritual redemption, the nature of love, and the intersection of human desire and divine will. The end of the affair is celebrated for its emotional depth, moral complexity, and its exploration of the tension between faith and doubt. 1-minute recap. The Catcher in the Rye, written by J.D. Salinger and published in 1951, is a seminal novel that captures the alienation and disillusionment of adolescence. The story is narrated by Holden Caulfield, a rebellious and cynical 16-year-old who has been expelled from yet another boarding school. Over the course of a few days in New York City, Holden grapples with his feelings of confusion, loneliness, and his fear of growing up. He despises the phoniness of the adult world and longs to protect the innocence of children, famously imagining himself as the catcher in the rye, saving children from falling into corruption. As Holden navigates encounters with strangers, former friends, and family, the novel explores themes of mental health, identity, and the painful transition from adolescence to adulthood. The Catcher in the Rye is celebrated for its honest portrayal of teenage angst and remains a deeply influential work in American literature. 1-minute recap. The Adventures of Augie March, written by Saul Bellow and published in 1953, is a sprawling, picaresque novel that follows the life of Augie March, a young man growing up during the Great Depression in Chicago. Augie, the novel's exuberant and resourceful protagonist, embarks on a series of adventures and misadventures, guided by a wide cast of colorful characters, including petty criminals, eccentric intellectuals, and idealists. Despite his lack of clear direction or ambition, Augie continually seeks to define himself while navigating the complexities of love, loyalty, and identity. Bellow's narrative, brimming with energy and wit, explores themes of individualism, the search for purpose, and the American dream. The Adventures of Augie March is celebrated for its vibrant prose, rich character development, and its insightful depiction of human nature, cementing Bellow's reputation as one of the great American writers of the 20th century. 1-minute recap. Lord of the Flies, written by William Golding and published in 1954, is a powerful allegorical novel that explores the dark aspects of human nature. The story follows a group of British schoolboys stranded on a deserted island after a plane crash. Without adult supervision, the boys attempt to govern themselves, but their efforts quickly descend into chaos and savagery. Led by Ralph, who advocates for order and cooperation, and Jack, who embraces violence and power, the boys' fragile society collapses as fear and primal instincts take over. The symbolic struggle between civilization and barbarism unfolds, with key themes including the loss of innocence, the inherent capacity for evil, and the breakdown of social order. Golding's stark portrayal of humanity's darker impulses offers a grim reflection on society and the fragility of morality. Lord of the Flies remains a seminal work, celebrated for its profound psychological depth and moral insight. 1-minute recap. Lolita, written by Vladimir Nabokov and published in 1955, is a novel that explores themes of obsession, manipulation, and guilt. The story is narrated by Humbert, a middle-aged literature professor who becomes fixated on Dolores Hayes, a 12-year-old girl he nicknames Lolita. After marrying her mother to stay close to the girl, circumstances lead him to take Lolita on a journey across the United States. Throughout the novel, Humbert manipulates both Lolita and the reader, presenting his actions through a sophisticated and unreliable narrative voice. Nabokov's novel is notable for its exploration of the darker side of human nature and the complexities of obsession, while also being celebrated for its stylistic brilliance and narrative depth. Lolita challenges readers with its moral ambiguity and remains a controversial yet highly regarded work of 20th century literature. 1-minute recap. On the Road, written by Jack Kerouac and published in 1957, is a defining novel of the Beat generation. The semi-autobiographical story follows the adventures of Sal Paradise, Kerouac's alter ego, and his free-spirited, charismatic friend Dean Moriarty, based on Neil Cassidy, as they embark on a series of road trips across the United States in search of freedom, meaning, and experience. Set against the backdrop of post-World War II America, the novel explores themes of rebellion, counterculture, and the quest for personal and spiritual fulfillment. Kerouac's spontaneous prose style mirrors the restless energy of his characters, capturing the jazz-influenced bohemian spirit of the time. As Sal and Dean traverse the country, encountering a variety of characters and living life on the fringes, On the Road paints a vivid picture of youthful idealism and disillusionment. It remains a seminal work in American literature for its raw portrayal of the pursuit of freedom. 1 minute recap. Voss, written by Patrick White and published in 1957, is an allegorical novel that follows Johann Ulrich Voss, a German explorer, on an ambitious expedition into the uncharted Australian outback. Set in the mid-19th century, the novel explores Voss's obsessive drive to conquer both the harsh landscape and his own inner demons. As the journey becomes increasingly perilous, Voss faces not only the physical challenges of the unforgiving wilderness, but also a deeper existential struggle. Meanwhile, a spiritual connection develops between Voss and Laura Trevelyan, a young woman in Sydney. Despite their physical separation, they form a bond that transcends reality, symbolizing Voss's quest for meaning. Voss is praised for its psychological complexity, lyrical prose, and exploration of human ambition, isolation, and destiny, solidifying White's reputation as one of Australia's greatest literary figures. 1 minute recap. To Kill a Mockingbird, written by Harper Lee and published in 1960, is a timeless novel that addresses themes of racial injustice, morality, and the loss of innocence. Set in the 1930s in the fictional town of Maycomb, Alabama, the story is narrated by Scout Finch, a young girl growing up during the Great Depression. Her father, Atticus Finch, is a principled lawyer who defends Tom Robinson, a black man falsely accused of raping a white woman. As the trial unfolds, Scout and her brother, Jem, witness the deep-seated racism and prejudice that pervades their community. The novel also explores Scout's coming of age as she grapples with questions of right and wrong, guided by her father's wisdom and integrity. To Kill a Mockingbird is celebrated for its compassionate portrayal of social injustice, its memorable characters, and its powerful exploration of conscience and empathy, making it a cornerstone of American literature. 1 minute recap. The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, written by Muriel Spark and published in 1961, is a sharp and witty novel about the influence of an unconventional teacher on a group of impressionable young girls. Set in 1930s Edinburgh, the story follows Miss Jean Brodie, a charismatic and eccentric teacher at an all-girls school who believes she is in her prime and seeks to shape her students, the Brodie set, into free-thinking individuals. Miss Brodie's teachings, however, reflect her own personal ideologies, including her admiration for fascism, and she manipulates the girls into following her worldview. As the students grow older, tensions rise, especially with one student, Sandy, who ultimately betrays Miss Brodie to the school authorities. The novel explores themes of power, control, and betrayal, and is celebrated for its concise prose, dark humor, and insightful examination of the complexities of influence and authority. 1 minute recap. Catch-22, written by Joseph Heller and published in 1961, is a darkly comic and satirical novel set during World War II. It follows Captain John Yossarian, a U.S. bombardier who becomes increasingly desperate to escape the war. The novel introduces the absurd Catch-22 rule, which dictates that airmen can be grounded if they are insane, but requesting to be grounded proves they are sane enough to continue flying, trapping them in a paradox. The novel is populated by eccentric characters and highlights the absurdity and bureaucratic chaos of war, with Heller critiquing the dehumanizing effects of military institutions and the illogical nature of authority. Through its circular, fragmented narrative and dark humor, Catch-22 explores themes of survival, fear, and the moral ambiguity of war. Heller's novel remains a defining work of 20th century literature, renowned for its sharp wit, anti-war sentiment, and timeless critique of institutional absurdity. 1 minute recap. The Golden Notebook, written by Doris Lessing and published in 1962, is a groundbreaking novel that explores themes of personal, political, and psychological fragmentation. The story centers on Anna Wolf, a writer who struggles to make sense of her life through 4 separate notebooks, each reflecting different aspects of her experiences: her political disillusionment, personal relationships, and emotional breakdown. The novel's structure interweaves Anna's story with that of her alter ego in her fictional writing, blurring the lines between art and life. The Golden Notebook becomes a symbol of Anna's attempt to unify the fragmented pieces of her identity. Lessing addresses complex themes such as feminism, mental health, the breakdown of social structures, and the search for personal wholeness. The Golden Notebook is celebrated for its innovative form, psychological depth, and exploration of women's roles, marking it as a seminal work in feminist and postmodern literature. 1-minute recap. A Clockwork Orange, written by Anthony Burgess and published in 1962, is a dystopian novel that explores the themes of free will, morality, and state control. The story is set in a near-future society and follows Alex, a teenage delinquent who leads a gang that indulges in violent and criminal acts. After being arrested, Alex is subjected to a controversial government rehabilitation program known as the Ludovico Technique, which conditions him to become violently ill at the thought of committing any wrongdoing. The novel's title refers to the idea of mechanizing human behavior, turning a person into something predictable, like a clockwork. Through Alex's journey, Burgess explores the tension between free will and state-imposed order, questioning whether it is better to be forced into goodness or to choose evil freely. The novel, with its unique Nadsat slang and dark humor, is celebrated for its linguistic creativity, philosophical depth, and disturbing examination of the human condition. 1-minute recap. A Single Man, written by Christopher Isherwood and published in 1964, is a poignant and introspective novel that explores themes of grief, identity, and loneliness. Set in 1960s California, the story follows George, a middle-aged English professor struggling to cope with the sudden death of his partner Jim. Over the course of a single day, George navigates his routine, teaching, running errands, and meeting with friends, while internally grappling with profound sorrow and isolation. As George reflects on his life and interactions with others, Isherwood delves into the themes of alienation, particularly as a gay man in a society that marginalizes him. Despite his despair, George seeks moments of connection and meaning in his day-to-day existence. The novel is celebrated for its elegant, understated prose and its compassionate, nuanced portrayal of grief and the human condition, making it a landmark in LGBTQ+ literature. 1-minute recap. In Cold Blood, written by Truman Capote and published in 1966, is a pioneering work of true crime literature that details the brutal 1959 murder of the Clutter family in Holcomb, Kansas, and the subsequent investigation and trial. Capote meticulously reconstructs the events leading up to the crime, in which 2 ex-convicts, Perry Smith and Dick Hickok, plotted to rob the Clutters but ended up killing the entire family in cold blood. The novel is based on extensive interviews and research, and Capote presents a nuanced portrayal of the killers, exploring their backgrounds, motivations, and psychological states. Through a blend of journalistic precision and novelistic techniques, In Cold Blood examines the impact of the crime on the small Kansas community, as well as the moral and ethical questions surrounding the death penalty. Capote's innovative narrative style and deep psychological insights make In Cold Blood a landmark in American literature, blurring the line between journalism and fiction. 1-minute recap. The Bell Jar, written by Sylvia Plath and published in 1963 under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas, is a semi-autobiographical novel that explores themes of mental illness, identity, and societal pressure. The story follows Esther Greenwood, a talented young woman who wins an internship at a prominent magazine in New York City. Despite her apparent success, Esther becomes increasingly disillusioned with the expectations placed on her by society, particularly around gender roles, career, and marriage. As Esther's mental health deteriorates, she falls into a deep depression, feeling trapped under the metaphorical bell jar that distorts her view of the world and isolates her from others. The novel delves into her experiences with psychiatric treatment, including electroconvulsive therapy, and her struggle to reclaim a sense of self. The Bell Jar is celebrated for its raw, insightful portrayal of mental illness, Plath's lyrical prose, and its exploration of a young woman's fight for autonomy in a restrictive society. 1-minute recap. Portnoy's Complaint, written by Philip Roth and published in 1969, is a provocative and humorous novel that explores themes of identity, sexual desire, and cultural guilt. The story is presented as a monologue delivered by Alexander Portnoy, a young Jewish man, to his psychoanalyst, Dr. Spielvogel. Through this session, Portnoy reveals his frustrations, neuroses, and guilt, particularly surrounding his overbearing mother, his Jewish upbringing, and his intense sexual desires. Portnoy's internal conflict, his craving for sexual freedom versus the moral and cultural constraints he feels, forms the crux of the novel. His often outrageous confessions, laced with dark humor, reveal deeper issues of self-identity, shame, and rebellion against societal and familial expectations. Portnoy's Complaint shocked and entertained readers with its candid and comedic take on taboo subjects. Roth's bold exploration of the human psyche and his sharp satirical prose make this novel a defining work of modern American literature. 1-minute recap. Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont, written by Elizabeth Taylor and published in 1971, is a poignant and subtly humorous novel that explores themes of loneliness, aging, and the search for connection. The story centers on Mrs. Palfrey, an elderly widow who moves into the Claremont Hotel, a boarding house in London, hoping to maintain her dignity and independence. At the Claremont, she meets a group of similarly lonely residents, all struggling with the isolation and indignities of old age. Mrs. Palfrey's life takes a turn when she befriends a young struggling writer named Ludo, whom she pretends is her grandson, to impress the other residents. Their unlikely friendship brings joy and meaning to her life, but it also highlights the fragility of human relationships. Taylor's elegant prose and keen psychological insight make Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont a touching meditation on the emotional complexities of aging and the need for companionship. 1-minute recap. Rabbit Redux, written by John Updike and published in 1971, is the second novel in the Rabbit series, following Rabbit Run. The story revisits Harry Rabbit Angstrom, now in his 30s, living in a small Pennsylvania town, working at a printing plant, and feeling increasingly dissatisfied with his stagnant life. Set against the backdrop of the social and political upheavals of the late 1960s, including the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, and the rise of counterculture, Rabbit's personal crisis mirrors the turmoil of the nation. Rabbit's life takes a dramatic turn when his wife Janice leaves him for another man, and he ends up taking in two house guests, Skeeter, an African-American Vietnam veteran, and Jill, a runaway teenage girl. Their presence forces Rabbit to confront issues of race, class, and morality. Rabbit Redux is celebrated for its sharp social commentary and Updike's rich, vivid portrayal of middle-class America in a time of radical change. 1-minute recap. Song of Solomon, written by Toni Morrison and published in 1977, is a richly layered novel that explores themes of identity, heritage, and self-discovery within the African-American experience. The story follows Macon Milkman Dead Thury, a young man born into a wealthy black family in Michigan. Milkman is disconnected from his family's history and his community, living a life of materialism and detachment. As the novel unfolds, Milkman embarks on a transformative journey to uncover his family's past, tracing his roots to the South and learning about the struggles and triumphs of his ancestors. Through this journey, he discovers the significance of his heritage and the meaning of personal freedom. Song of Solomon delves deeply into African-American folklore, mythology, and Morrison's signature exploration of complex family dynamics. It is celebrated for its lyrical prose, symbolic depth, and its powerful portrayal of the quest for identity and understanding. 1-minute recap. A Bend in the River, written by V.S. Naipaul and published in 1979, is a powerful novel set in post-colonial Africa. The story is narrated by Salim, a merchant of Indian descent, who moves to a small town at a bend in a river in an unnamed African country to run a shop. As he observes the country's turbulent political landscape, Salim becomes a witness to the struggles of a newly independent nation, trying to find its identity amidst chaos, corruption, and dictatorship. Through Salim's detached yet insightful perspective, the novel explores themes of displacement, the legacy of colonialism, and the instability of modern African states. As the political situation worsens, Salim grapples with his own sense of belonging and survival in an unpredictable environment. A Bend in the River is celebrated for its profound examination of post-colonial Africa, Naipaul's precise prose, and its exploration of the broader human condition in times of cultural and political upheaval. 1-minute recap. Midnight's Children, written by Salman Rushdie and published in 1981, is a groundbreaking novel that combines historical fiction with magical realism. It tells the story of Salim Sinai, one of 1,001 children born at the exact moment of India's independence on August 15, 1947. These Midnight's children are gifted with special powers, and Salim's telepathic abilities allow him to connect with the others. Through Salim's life, the novel mirrors the major historical events of post-colonial India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, capturing the political turmoil, violence, and fragmentation of the region. Rushdie explores themes of identity, history, and national destiny, blending personal and national narratives with his characteristic wit, fantasy, and vivid prose. Midnight's Children is celebrated for its inventive storytelling and exploration of post-colonial identity, earning the Booker Prize and cementing Rushdie's reputation as one of the most significant voices in modern literature. 1-minute recap. Housekeeping, written by Marilynne Robinson and published in 1980, is a lyrical and meditative novel that explores themes of loss, isolation, and family ties. The story follows two sisters, Ruth and Lucille, who are raised in the remote town of Fingerbone after the death of their mother. As their eccentric Aunt Sylvie takes over their care, the girls find themselves caught between two worlds. Lucille, who longs for normalcy and stability, and Ruth, who is drawn to Sylvie's transient, unconventional lifestyle. Set against the haunting landscape of the Pacific Northwest, the novel delves into the complexities of family, belonging, and the tension between society's expectations and individual freedom. Robinson's poetic prose and deep exploration of human emotions create a haunting narrative about memory, survival, and the pull of solitude. Housekeeping is widely regarded as a modern classic, praised for its profound emotional depth, rich language, and philosophical reflection on what it means to live outside societal norms. 1-minute recap. Money, a Suicide Note, written by Martin Amis and published in 1984, is a darkly comic and satirical novel that explores themes of excess, addiction, and self-destruction. The story follows John Self, a hedonistic, self-indulgent director of TV commercials who becomes embroiled in the chaotic world of Hollywood while attempting to produce a film. Obsessed with money, alcohol, drugs, and sex, John spirals out of control as he grapples with his vices and mounting personal crises. The novel is a biting critique of 1980s consumer culture, greed, and the emptiness of materialism. Amis's sharp, irreverent prose captures John's nihilistic worldview, while the narrative blends humor with bleak reflections on modern life. As John's life unravels, the novel delves into existential questions of identity and the nature of self-destruction. Money is celebrated for its stylistic daring, wit, and scathing portrayal of the excesses of contemporary society, making it one of Amis's most iconic works. 1-minute recap. An Artist of the Floating World, written by Kazuo Ishiguro and published in 1986, is a reflective novel set in post-World War II Japan. The story is narrated by Masuji Ono, an aging painter who once enjoyed prestige for his work promoting Japanese imperialism during the war. Now, in the aftermath of Japan's defeat, Ono grapples with guilt, memory, and the shifting cultural landscape as Japan rebuilds and embraces Western values. As he looks back on his life, Ono reflects on his role in supporting a political regime that caused widespread suffering, while also trying to reconcile his past with the expectations of his family and society. The novel explores themes of memory, personal responsibility, and the moral consequences of artistic and political choices. With its subtle, introspective prose, An Artist of the Floating World is celebrated for its quiet power, its exploration of cultural change, and its meditation on the tension between pride and regret. 1-minute recap. The Beginning of Spring, written by Penelope Fitzgerald and published in 1988, is a delicate and richly atmospheric novel set in Moscow in 1913, on the eve of the Russian Revolution. The story follows Frank Reed, an Englishman who runs a printing press in Russia. His life is upended when his wife, Nellie, suddenly leaves him without explanation, abandoning him and their 3 children. As Frank navigates the uncertainties of his personal life, he hires a mysterious young Russian woman, Lisa, to help care for his children. Against the backdrop of a rapidly changing society, Frank wrestles with his own emotions, family responsibilities, and the looming political upheaval. Fitzgerald's novel is celebrated for its nuanced character development, subtle humor, and vivid portrayal of pre-revolutionary Russia. The Beginning of Spring explores themes of identity, cultural dislocation, and the quiet complexities of human relationships, all rendered in Fitzgerald's precise and elegant prose. 1-minute recap. Breathing Lessons, written by Anne Tyler and published in 1988, is a heartfelt and insightful novel that explores the complexities of marriage, love, and family. The story takes place over the course of a single day, following Eyre and Maggie Moran, a middle-aged couple from Baltimore, as they drive to attend the funeral of a friend's husband. During the trip, Maggie, an impulsive and optimistic woman, reflects on their long, often turbulent marriage, while Eyre, more pragmatic and reserved, quietly stews over their differences. As the day unfolds, the couple confronts old memories, past mistakes, and the enduring connection that keeps them together despite their frustrations. Tyler masterfully captures the ordinary moments and emotional undercurrents that shape their relationship. Breathing Lessons is celebrated for its tender exploration of marriage and the everyday challenges of life, earning Tyler the Pulitzer Prize for its depiction of the joys and sorrows of long-term commitment. 1-minute recap. Amongst Women, written by John McGahern and published in 1990, tells the story of Michael Moran, a former IRA fighter who becomes a tyrannical patriarch in his rural Irish home. Now aging and widowed, Moran exerts strict control over his 3 daughters, who remain devoted to him despite his authoritarian rule. His harshness, stemming from his past as a revolutionary, dominates their lives, creating a complex blend of love, fear, and loyalty within the family. The novel explores Moran's struggle with the loss of power as he grows older, as well as the lasting impact of his personality on those around him. Through his interactions with his family, McGahern deftly examines themes of authority, familial duty, and the psychological scars of Ireland's political history. Amongst Women is praised for its lyrical prose, its subtle portrayal of family dynamics, and its deep insight into the tensions between love and control. 1-minute recap. Underworld, written by Don DeLillo and published in 1997, is a sweeping, ambitious novel that explores the intersecting lives of various characters across decades of American history, from the Cold War to the late 20th century. The novel opens with the iconic 1951 baseball game between the New York Giants and the Brooklyn Dodgers, where the ball from Bobby Thompson's famous "Shot Heard Round the World" becomes a symbol of American culture and obsession. At the heart of the novel is Nick Shea, a waste management executive haunted by his past, whose personal story intertwines with major historical events, from nuclear anxiety to urban decay. DeLillo weaves together themes of memory, history, consumerism, and the fear of apocalypse, capturing the complexities of post-war America. Underworld is celebrated for its intricate structure, lyrical prose, and its profound exploration of the interconnectedness of individual lives and historical forces, solidifying DeLillo's place as a major voice in contemporary literature. 1-minute recap. Disgrace, written by J.M. Coetzee and published in 1999, is a powerful novel that explores themes of power, shame, and the complexities of post-apartheid South Africa. The story follows David Lurie, a middle-aged professor in Cape Town who is disgraced after an affair with one of his students. Dismissed from his job, Lurie retreats to his daughter Lucy's farm in the Eastern Cape, where he hopes to find solace. However, their lives are violently disrupted by an attack on the farm, forcing both father and daughter to confront their vulnerability, the shifting dynamics of race and power in the new South Africa, and their own moral failings. As Lurie grapples with his sense of guilt and helplessness, the novel probes issues of justice, redemption, and reconciliation in a country still scarred by its past. Disgrace is celebrated for its unflinching portrayal of personal and societal conflict, earning Coetzee the Booker Prize and cementing his reputation as a literary giant. 1-minute recap. True History of the Kelly Gang, written by Peter Carey and published in 2000, is a fictionalized account of the life of the notorious Australian outlaw Ned Kelly. The novel is presented as a series of letters written by Kelly to his daughter, offering his version of events as he reflects on his life as a bushranger, his battle against British colonial authorities, and the hardships faced by his Irish immigrant family. Set in 19th century Australia, the story explores themes of poverty, injustice, and rebellion. Kelly becomes a folk hero to the oppressed, fighting against the social and legal systems that seek to crush him. The novel delves into his personal struggles, his loyalty to his family, and his complex moral code, painting him as both a criminal and a tragic figure. Carey's use of Kelly's distinct, raw voice and his blend of historical fact with fiction make True History of the Kelly Gang a compelling and richly textured exploration of legend, identity, and resistance, earning it the Booker Prize.